So many years ago, I was approached by an ex-player. I had a player, Robbie Slater. Lovely, lovely guy. He played at Blackburn. He played at West Ham. He's an Australian player. And we spoke about different players. And I had a player fall into my hands that I went to watch, and he was sensational. And at the time, Newcastle were the club. Kevin Keegan was the manager. They had people like Aspria playing there. Les Ferdinand, this was a real team. And I thought this player would be magnificent there. So I told Kevin, now I don't know who Kevin sent to watch the player. In my opinion, and it's only my opinion, this player was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I only watched him for 45 minutes. He was brilliant. Kevin sent someone to watch him. Now, at that time, let's say the first division, let's call it the Championship, because what it was the Premier League, then the first division. But let's, for the sake of words, let's call it the Championship. At that time, Wolves were bottom of the Championship. And I remember Kevin sent someone to watch him, and Kevin called me, said, Silky, we've been to watch the player. And in our opinion, and it's not his opinion, it's just whoever went to watch him. In our opinion, the player is not good enough to play for Wolves. So I said, Kev, who did you send? Stevie Wonder. I'll never forget this. He said, well, it's an opinion. I said, well, I have to tell you, you are so far out, it's scary. So what I did, I called a friend of mine whose brother-in-law was in charge of a huge club abroad. And I said, they've got to go and watch this player. He was cheap. He was £1.2 million. So you've got to go and watch him. And at that time, 5 million was a big price, 6 million. So at 1.2, even then he was cheap. I said, they've got to go and watch him because he's fantastic. So he spoke to his brother-in-law and he come back, a guy called Maurizio, come back to me. He said to me, Silky, we know the player. My brother-in-law knows the player because he was working Maurizio for the youth team, scout for the youth team. He said, we know the player. He knows you're a great judge, so we're going to go and watch him again. And they bought the player. And obviously I didn't get paid, yeah? But what they did do, because there was no transfer windows then, for 4 years running after that, they gave my wife and I free holiday in Italy for 1 month. Any hotels we wanted to go, they picked up the bill for 4 years. The player's name was Zinedine Zidane. And whoever Kevin went to send to watch him said he couldn't play for Wolves.
Oh, did seriously Wolves turn down Zinedine Zidane?
No, not Wolves, Newcastle.
Oh, it was Newcastle turned him down.
Newcastle, yeah, Kevin Keegan at Newcastle, yeah. Because Kevin, obviously it wasn't Kevin because Kevin didn't see him, but Kevin sent somebody to watch him, and they just said he couldn't play.
He couldn't play for
Wolves. He's not good enough to play for Wolves. He was bottom of the Championship.
Yes.
And the guy I spoke to was Maurizio Peverali, and his brother-in-law was Roberto Bettiga. And at the time, Roberto Bettiga was running Juventus.
What a player he was as well, Bettiga.
Yeah, and they ended up selling him for, I think it was about 46 million they sold him for.
I'm sure you've seen that picture.
Yeah.
How did you feel, John, when you were walking away from the team that you supported as a kid? Your dream was to play for Manchester United. Did you feel that part of that dream was being taken away, or did you feel as though you were walking into a bright new tomorrow with Don Revie and this team that he was assembling at Leeds United?
Well, what happens, John, when you're a kid, you have dreams.
Yeah.
Right? You dream about things. But then you have to, then it becomes reality.
Yes.
You know, in my situation at Old Trafford, it was no longer a dream.
Yeah.
You know, this is my future. And Matt Busby had lost confidence in me.
Yeah.
And, you know, what was said at Old Trafford, nobody leaves Old Trafford and does well. In fact, when I asked for the transfer, I mean, Matt didn't hesitate. He said, yeah, that's okay. And Wilf McGuinness said at one stage, a few days later, go up and see the boss and he might change his mind.
Yeah.
Because that was the mood at Old Trafford. Nobody does Old Trafford. Nobody leaves Old Trafford and does well. And nobody really wants to leave. Well, I did. I was having a bad time at Old Trafford. So in my head, I was only 22 at the time. In my head, it was, well, this is a great club for Dennis Law and Bobby Charlton. And that's great. That's great for them. It's not great for me. So I thought, well, I want to go because I couldn't see any future there for me. I couldn't keep going at the way I was going. My confidence would have been totally gone. So I thought, well, if I go on the transfer list and somebody comes in for me, it means that they rate you. You're starting from scratch there.
Yeah.
And that's what happened with Don. Don came in, and Don was sort of taking me away from Old Trafford. I didn't read it. I thought it was just a photograph at the time, you know.
Absolutely. And to a brand new start at Leeds United, you got Billy there that you formed. I would say arguably the greatest double act. A better double act than Lauren and Lardy and Morecambe and White and any of the double acts that we know.
That was off the pitch. Now the big reason I was influenced to go to Leeds, who were in the second division then, was Bobby Collins.
Yeah.
Bobby Collins was 10 years older than me, but I played against Bobby Collins when he was at Everton. I saw him playing for Celtic, and he was one of my heroes, one of the great players. And I thought, well, if Bobby Collins is gone to Leeds, they must be doing something.
Yeah.
They must be doing something. And I know from Christmas to the end of the season, they made a really good run at getting promotion. They finished fourth, I think, at that particular time. So when you're making a move, Paul, as you know, you're in the lap of the gods. Nobody knows how a move is going to work out. You know, you're taking a chance on it. It's always a chance. And I was very lucky. I had me two angels on my shoulders, and that it worked out as well as it did at Leeds. Nobody could foresee that. I couldn't foresee it, but you just had to take it at the time. I was only on the transfer list for 2 days, but I really did want to get away from Old Trafford.
SRB Media.
You didn't just blow kisses whilst on the football pitch. You sat down and gave kisses as well, didn't you?
First of all, I thought you were talking about sitting on the ball. Yeah, well,
we're going to come to that in a bit because I'm still at the beginning of Sheffield and moving on and going back. But that kiss with Alan Birchnell, because you pretty much replaced Birch, didn't you, at Sheffield United? He'd moved on.
Yeah, that's dead right. He 60, late 67, yeah. He went to Chelsea, and I came early 68. So yeah, I more or less replaced him, and Mick Jones went before that 68 Christmas. 67 Christmas, New Year, and them two went, and I came, and you could say I replaced him. Yeah, but the kiss happened. I think it was 74, 5, something like that, and I think we were defending, and we ended up doing it was like, it really was synchronised. It was we both tumbled over head over heels. It was, and we both sat there, and he just turned around and said, "Kiss a kiss," because we knew each other from playing against each other, and he's a lovely bloke anyway. And so I did. We kissed on the lips, and there was one photographer there, probably made a fortune out of it.
It is sad that the photographer makes a fortune out of it, and you and Birch made absolutely zip, which it should be really the other way around. But you did court controversy because it wasn't just the kiss. They were going balmy, weren't they, the public?
Yeah. Well, apparently it was. I mean, it was in the papers the next day, and apparently it was the first ever kiss on the lips in the world ever, and through two footballers, and it got in magazines abroad and stuff like that. But Birchie, he made a few bob out of it for charity, because he used to send me pictures of it, and I'd sign them, and I'd send them back to him, and he'd be raising money for his charities, and he must have made thousands and thousands. He got a bloody MBE or something for all that, and I was bloody signing these things and sending them back to him. But we redid it a couple, if that's the word. It's not, but we did it at Leicester a couple of times, because he used to run around the pitch for charity at the end of the season, and I'd go there, and we actually set it up that we kissed again, and he made a few £100 out of that, and we've done it again in Sheffield and stuff, and it's all for his bloody charity. It's not mine.
But again, Birch was one of the characters of the game, wasn't he? And another player that when he went on the pitch, he wanted to entertain. We had characters. I think these days we haven't got so many characters, and that's why we love and always love to indulge in those great halcyon days of the 70s with you guys. So you signed on at Sheffield there as a young un, as a forward. And it wasn't until a couple of seasons later that you had a chat with John and says, "Look, John, I fancy playing midfield rather than up front."
Mm.
And then I guess the blue touch paper of Tony Curry was truly lit.
Yeah, I'd scored 9 goals in my first 6 games for Watford, which is possibly a record. I don't know. I'd love to find out one day. From first ever debut, 9 goals in 6 games, a bit phenomenal, isn't it?
I would say 100% that's a record.
I mean, it was a Jimmy Greaves sort of thing, and I was thinking this is all right. I went to Sheffield United, scored 4 in my first 13 games in my first bit of a season with them, and then the goals just seemed to dry up, and I ended up. I found myself in midfield making goals.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, this is a lot of fun.
SRB Media.
Talk to me about that wonderful time that you spent. Was it in France with Bob Latchford? That was a wonderful story.
Yeah, that was it was a fun story because it was again, it was something that out of the blue because that was the game. That was funnily enough, strangely enough, an under 23 too. They just got rid of my ban. I think they cut my ban short because Ramsey had got the sack, and they were looking for a new manager, and a fella called Ken Furphy took over just as an interim. And we got to the airport, and we was at the airport this particular day, and I'd never thought too much of it. Just went for the trip really because I was back. It was good just to be there and there be no Don Revie. And I thought I might have a chance to build my career up again here. And he called us all in, Furphy, and he said, "Look," he says, "I'm new at this game. I managed Watford." He said, "But internationally," he said, "I haven't got a clue to make captain." He says, "So could we have a show of hands? Who do you and the fella called Willie Madron, who was a big lad at centre half at Middlesbrough. I didn't know him, but he turned out a right nice lad. And it was it must have been his first trip as well, because he just turned around and he said, "I don't think there's any question about this." He said, and he just pointed at me and he said, "Well, he's the best player in here." He said, "Surely he should be captain." And Furphy just turned around and said, "Anyone got any quibbles with it?" And everyone kind of, it wasn't as if they wanted me to be captain. They just wanted to get on with it. But Willie spoke up anyway, made me captain, and then we got to our first departure place was I think it was Paris or something, and I'm with Bob Latchford, and Bob, who was a lovely fella, and he was a big strong boy, and his case didn't turn up. We got to the hotel, and he said, I've got no gear. And I said, "Try some of mine on." And he said, "Yours won't." He said, "Yours won't fit me." And he took his top off, his muscles so I went, "All right." I said, "Stay as you are." And my first job was to go in to see the secretary. So I went downstairs, and this is something I really look forward to for once, banging on their door instead of them banging on mine. And I just said to the fella, he said, what is it? And I said, "My roommate hasn't got any gear. His case never turned up, and I want some money for him." So he says, "Well, what do you want?" I said, "Well, give him 400 quid for go and buy some clothes." I said, he can't walk around and saying clothes for 5-6 days.
And anyway, he went into his wallet and he gave me his money. Went up and gave it to Bob. And I said, come on, we're going shopping. Let's get you some gear and then we go and have a beer. And we walked round the corner and he stopped along the street and he was looking in his dress shop. And I started laughing to myself. And I said, what are you doing? And he says, I said, you're not a cross-dresser, are you? So he said, no. He says, everywhere I go in the world, whenever I go on tour, I always buy my wife a dress. I said, but you haven't got no clothes, Bob. Buy yourself some clothes first and then buy yourself something later. He said, no, I must buy her something. So he bought his wife a dress and then we had to go and get him some clothes. But it was just absolutely hilarious. And now I've got a room with him for 5 days and I thought, oh, he's going to be starting dressing up as a woman, this fella, you know. And he was one of the toughest centre forwards in the country at that time, you know. So it was a great start to the trip, and it was all fun really. Nothing come of it. I can't remember any of the matches. I think we played in Turkey in Ankara where we got flooded off, but it was no good. The games weren't no good, and I don't think too much come out of it. I don't even know if I ever got picked again. I'm not too sure.
If you could have a conversation with anyone, a one-to-one with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be with?
If I could have what?
A conversation, a cup of coffee, a beer, a cup of tea, a one-to-one conversation with anyone, dead or alive. Who would it be with?
Billy Bremner.
You were very close, wasn't you? You and Billy.
Yeah, I think I was the brother he never had.
Mm.
Yeah. I think since he's passed away, which is about 22 years, I think now.
Yeah.
I wake up and every day of my life I think about Billy some part of the day, and I will to the day I die. And I've always said they don't make players like him today.
What was special? What was different about Billy Bremner? Because I mean, he was a great midfield player, and he scored a lot of goals from midfield play, and also a lot of important goals for Leeds United, didn't he?
Absolutely. And I mean, people say to me, who was the best player you ever played with or against? Well, I played against Leeds before I joined Leeds.
Yep.
And I played with some great England players, i.e. Bobby Moore, Gordon Banks, Alan Ball, Bobby Charlton. But for me, best player I played with and against, Billy Bremner, without a shadow of a doubt. He got absolutely everything, world class, absolutely. I mean, as you said, he scored a lot of goals for Leeds United, and he scored a lot of vital goals as well. He'd got everything. I mean, if you saw Billy in training, pre-season, we used to go on like 5-mile runs to get stamina. The gaffer used to give him 15 minutes start before he set us off because he weren't interested.
Yeah.
But give him a ball, put a ball to his feet, he'll run all day.
Yeah.
That's the difference. Unbelievable.
Against Liverpool, you made your home debut, didn't you? And you had a dream that day. Boy, wasn't it a dream.
SRB Media.
Hat trick.
Well, yeah.
And a kicking.
Yeah, it was quite a remarkable day.
It was, wasn't it?
Excuse me. So you have to remember that having played at sort of third division level and just a few games at second division level, all of a sudden here I was in front of a packed stadium, and as the team ran out onto the pitch, the noise was absolutely deafening. The atmosphere was just electric, and without any, and this is why it's so difficult at the moment for players.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because you have that noise and atmosphere in a stadium, and it just lifts you.
Yeah.
It really does lift you. And so the game has started, and Emily Hughes scored for Liverpool.
Yeah.
Made it 1-0, and we're carrying on playing. And signed just after myself was Terry Hibbett from Leeds United, and Terry and I, we were starting to build a good little relationship
together, and he slid a wonderful little ball through to a lad called David Young, who later went to Sunderland, and his claim to fame was that he was the sub on the bench at Wembley when Sunderland won the FA Cup in '73. And David Young was tripped in the penalty area by Kevin Keegan. And so I took the penalty and scored, and that made it 1 each. And then a bit later, in the first half still, Terry Hibbitt slid another wonderful pass. This time it was to me, and I was just able to dink it over the outstretched foot of Larry Lloyd, and I went round Lloydie and then cracked it into the far top corner. And it was quite spectacular.
Yes, it was.
And so the crowd have gone daft. We're 2-1 up against Liverpool. I've just scored my second goal, and I've gone to the corner flag to the left in celebration, and all the players have come running the length of the field and all congratulated me. And we're starting to head back towards the halfway line to get the match restarted. And I've listened, and the crowd are all singing in unison. Now, the hit musical at the time was Jesus Christ Superstar down in London. And the supporters were singing that title song, but they changed all the words. And so they were singing, Super Mac, Superstar, how many goals have you scored so far? And I thought, blimey, who's handed the song sheets out? You know, it was quite remarkable. It really was, and it was the sort of forging of a wonderful relationship that I've had with the Geordie folk ever since.
And then you went on and scored your hat trick.
I got it. Yes, I got the third.
Yeah.
And again, it was a super goal. It was a ball played into John Tudor, and he, first time, just lifted it over a defender's foot into my path, and I cracked it first time into the low corner. And well, goalkeepers don't like having hat-tricks scored against them, but Ray Clements in particular, I learned, really, really hated it. And a bit later in the game, he stuffed a goal kick, and he was one of the sweetest kickers of a ball that you could ever wish to see. And so for him to duff it, it's made me think in years that have followed that he's done that purposely, because he wasn't one to duff a kick at all. And it's come bobbling at me, and I've gone to control it, and it's come up, it's hit my leg, it's gone up and over Larry Lloyd, and I've sprinted past him, and as it's coming down and down, I've looked, and Ray Clements has come tearing out of his goal, and I've leapt up and lobbed volleyed the ball over his head, and I've landed, and I'm looking past Ray Clements and the ball has come down, 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 and then it's just sat on the roof of the net, the wrong side of the bar. And then Ray Clements, he just put 6 studs into my face at pace. And that was me done for the rest of the match. I was carried off, and I tried to stay conscious on the pitch. But by the time they put me on the treatment bed in the physio's room, I just sort of went spark out, was out for the count totally. And I woke up to see Frank Clark, our left back and vice captain, Frank Clark at the foot of the bed. And I would often, as a player, go, while everybody was getting all hyped up, I used to go the other way as a player. And I could go and have a kick for 10 minutes in the middle of getting ready. And I used to just stay very calm, very relaxed. And so I sort of came to thinking that the game was yet to be played. And I just said to Frank, I've just had this really incredible dream. I said, I've just dreamt that I scored a hat-trick. He said, you have scored a hat-trick, you idiot. This usually after the game, not before. I know, for heaven's sake. And so I had to really work my memory to get back all of the events that had taken place. So yeah, that was quite a home debut result.
Komm schon schön, es weht ja.